Hello students, I am Professor Abbas Ahmed Hussaini, working in a assistant professor in Mechanical Engineering Department at Sharad Institute of Technology, College of Engineering, Yadrao. So students, in earlier video we discussed some introductory part of the duct design, but here we will discuss some different methods of designing the duct. Now students, the most important part of the duct design is the air conditioning system or the air distribution system. So there are some rules for the duct design. So air should be conveyed as directly as possible to save space, power and material. Similar way, the sudden changes in the direction should be avoided for satisfactory operation of the air distribution system. When not possible to avoid sudden changes, so must have to consider the losses also. So diverging sections should be gradual. Angle divergence must be around 20 degree or less. The aspect ratio should be close, it is around 1. Normally it should not be exceed 4. Air velocity should be within the permissible limit to reduce the noise and vibration. Duct material should be smooth as possible in order to reduce the frictional losses. So these are some important factors while considering the duct. Similar way, students, generally at the time of the designing of air conditioning duct system, the required airflow rate are known as a load calculation. So we must have to consider the mass flow rate while designing the duct during that load calculation as well. The location of the fans and the air outlets are fixed initially, just like that diffuser and grilles. The duct layout is then made taking into account the space available and ease of construction. In principle, required amount of air to be conveyed through the air conditioning duct by the number of the combination. However, for a given system, only one set result in optimum design. So that is most important part. So these are some basic related with that duct designing. What is the function of the duct? The function of the duct is to transmit air from the air handling unit, that is AHU. It is called as the AHU, to the space where we need to be conditioned air. So duct are not only used for that supplying that cool air from one place to another place, but also we need that heating air. So at that time, so we must have to supply that heat air from the one place to another place. To fulfill the above function, the system must be designed within the prescribed limit of the available space in order to reduce the different losses. Friction, that is friction losses, that come under that major losses. Also we have to consider to reduce that minor losses as well, which occurs mostly because of the shapes and the bends. Similar way, velocity we have to consider, then the sound level we must have to consider, then heat losses also we must have to consider. The duct system are also used to bring the cooled air to the proper distribution point where several rooms are to be conditioned. It happen mostly in the case of the shopping malls, restaurants. Similar way in case of the hospital, where the requirement of the temperature is different in different sections. So now the classification of the duct, we discussed that point already, but revised again. According to the velocity of the air, the duct is classified into low velocity duct, high velocity duct. Now the second is according to the pressure: low pressure, medium pressure, high pressure. And third one is according to the type of the air. There are three types. The first is supply air, return air and fresh air. Now this is the most important point. So student, this is a classification or various shapes of the duct according to their various size and shape. Here you will get idea about. Just take a glance of it. So this is the spiral duct, round shaped. This is aluminum foil flexible duct, mostly used in the shopping malls and all. Circular duct are mostly used in the precise application like chemical plants. Similar way in case of the hospitals. Oval shaped where the space requirement is less, than at that time we must have to prefer that oval duct. And special shape duct, where we need to change the duct as per their dimensions and dimensions requirement. This is again flexible duct, insulated duct, mostly used in the shopping complex. 90 bent duct is also used. Similar way, rectangular duct are mostly commonly used. Reducer are also necessary. Lateral T is required. Similar way, some kind of the plenum section is also required. Then 45 bent duct is also there, and straight T type also used. So these are the various shapes of the duct mostly used in the various applications of the HVAC, like restaurants, shopping malls, residential and commercial buildings, then industries, chemical plant, pharmaceutical industries, food industry, etc. So these are the most important point of the discussion of today's presentation. So duct design method. So basically there are three famous method. Out of them, one is the velocity reduction method, second one is the equal friction method, and third one is the static regain method. So in case of the velocity reduction method, the velocity method is one of the simplest way of designing the duct system for both supply and return. So keep in mind that in case while designing that duct design system or air distribution system, we must have to consider the supply air as well as return air. So there are two different sections are there. So whatever the air which is coming from the AHU, it is fresh and it is supplied to the conditioned room, and after that, after utilizing in that conditioned space, we must have to give that air again for treating through the return section. So this is again important factor. So however, the application of this method requires selection of the suitable velocity. We must have to select suitable velocity in different duct runs. So there are various sections of the ducts are there, in which we must have to maintain the velocity as well. So which requires the experience technique. Some kind of the softwares are also used, and this is a very old techniques of supplying the air from one place to another place through that velocity reduction method. Now the second one and most famous and trusted method of the duct design is equal friction method. So this method is based on the principle that friction rate per unit length in the entire duct system would be maintained constant, and the duct size should be calculated for different discharge by keeping the friction rate constant. So these are the most important. First is that we must have to maintain the perfect or constant friction rate per unit length. This is important. And second one is that calculated for that discharge, we must have to maintain the proper discharge. So these are the two parameters which is important. First is, in case of the equal friction method, we must have to maintain firstly that friction per unit length throughout the duct, and second one is we must have to maintain the proper discharge throughout the duct system. These are the important two parameters in case of the equal friction method. This method is generally suitable when the ducts are not too large, and it can be used for both supply and return duct. However, similar to velocity method, the equal friction method also require a partial closure of the dampers in all but index run, which may generate noise. So mostly the application of the equal friction method is to supply the air within the short or within the that small applications. So that's why we must have to consider the effect of the velocity little bit as well while designing the equal friction method. So this is the last method of the designing that duct. The first is that most important is velocity reduction, second one is equal friction, and third one is static pressure recovery method. So this method is commonly used for a high velocity system. We just take example where continuously air velocity is high. At that time we must have to prefer that static pressure recovery unit. Mostly it is used in the food industry where the requirement of the air is high, packaging industries, processing industries. Sometimes in cold chain application we need in case of the cold storage as well. Mostly it is mostly used in the cold storage because the air velocity is very high. This method is commonly used for the high velocities. Keep in mind that, so cold storage is the best example. Food processing unit, pre-cooling unit, cooling chamber are the most important application of the such kind of the method where it is mostly implemented. With the long duct runs we must have to consider because the length of the duct is also long in this case, especially in the large system. In this method the static pressure is maintained same before each terminal or branches. So it is mandatory term in case of the static pressure recovery method. It is mostly used in the various application like food processing industry, packaging industries, cold chain application, cold storage, pre-cooling chamber, etc. So these are the terms used in the air distribution. So you might be known. The first is outlet. So it is an opening through which the air is supplied to the conditioned space. Now the second one is intake. What is that intake? It is the opening through which the air is returned from the space, that is return. You can take example of any shopping malls, or you just take a better example of cinema house where the outlets are there, grills through which diffusers the cooled air is continuously provided, but also some kind of the return lines are there. Return lines are mandatory to treat that air. Now the grills, the grill provide decorative covering for the outlet or the inlet, the way through which the air is passed at the end of the ducting system. It is called as grills. So it is mostly used in outlet as well as return also. Now diffuser, it is outlet grills designed to guide the direction of the air. It is mostly used in the intake, not for outlet. Sorry, it is mostly for the outlet, means when the air is treated from the conditioned machines, and when it must have to supply the conditioned space, at that time it is passes through the diffuser. So diffusers and grills are mostly used in case of the outlet, and grills are generally used in case of the return way. Then next is that register. It is a grill provided with the damper or control valve. And the last one is drop. It is a vertical distance that the lower edge of the horizontally projected air stream drop between the outlet and the end of the through. So student, this is some kind of the further information about the air distribution system. In next section we will again discuss various losses related with the ducts. Thank you.